Good morning to all of you over here. A great day for me, especially with reconnecting and with interconnect with my own ELMA and my own department, the Department of Anthropology, where I had been a student and have learned a way of life, as rightly said by my own teacher and previous speaker, Professor V.K. Srivastav, that once an anthropologist, you have a different eye to look towards the world. So I take with that and with a very great day listening to all my respected teachers, Professor P.C. Joshi, Professor Vinay Srivastav, Dr. M.P. Sachdeva also I can see over here. And I'll be listening to my own guide under whom I did my PhD in human cytogenetics, Professor P.K. Ghosh, who will be giving a great lecture. And coming to the wonderful and relevant topic, which I was thinking, see, now I am into an administration from last many years. When I came in 2001, switched over from the teaching faculty of anthropology to the administration and looking everything in the society on an anthropological insight and anthropological perspective. When we see, so it was just coming into my mind that we have lots and lots of webinars all across. We have the webinars on the mental health. We have the webinars on the insecurities in the COVID-19. We have the webinars on the virtual learning in higher education. We have the webinars on the blended learning, my classroom. So why not we have the anthropological perspective of the COVID-19, which is the utmost importance of the society, utmost reality of the things which needs to be understood on both biological as well as the cultural aspect to understand this pandemic virus. And I congratulate Dr. Saraswati, Dr. Mandal and the organizer, and specifically Professor B.C. Joshi. This is a platform that today we are listening to Professor P.C. Joshi, not only as an anthropologist, but as a great administrator. Now he has been given a Pro Vice Chancellorship of a reputed university of the country and the globe, University of Delhi. So we congratulate on behalf of all the present over here. I take this opportunity to congratulate once again Professor P.C. Joshi of becoming the Pro Vice Chancellor of University of Delhi. And I am sure that with his insight and perspective of anthropological thoughts and theories, the higher education is going to leap forward. So coming to what I am going to speak, we have really heard a great euphoria of the what both my previous teachers they talked about of the anthropological social aspects, the anthropology in the tribal India, and really telling you, I was reminded of my MSc days when Professor Vinay Srivastav used to come to the class, and I hope you all will agree with me that whenever he used to come to the class, he used to take out his watch, keep it on the desk, and literally telling you, even we all never thought and never imagined of how the class time went. It was the aura of Professor Srivastav, or rather I will say it is an aura of Professor Vinay Srivastav, that when he takes a class, we don't require any books. The things which he speaks from his mouth, from his heart, goes directly to our mind and we are able to understand. And same was the thing which we heard today, both the eminent speaker. So I will just try to put as a learner of anthropology. I am not an expert. I see Papa Rao sir also over here. So there are lots and lots of senior professors, and I had been a student, and then I always say that, but still a student of anthropology as a learner, I would just like to quickly go on to what anthropology reflections in this COVID-19. And rather, I will put a question at the last, that it is not only in this anthropological reflections are going to end in the COVID-19 era, but it has to be a post-COVID-19 also. So let me start. So this is anthropological reflection in time of COVID-19. And as we all know, we have been a student of anthropology. So we all know that anthropology is the study of human past and present, and with a focus on understanding human conditions, both culturally and biologically. So if we see the COVID-19, it was a very unpredicted kind of a virus or a disorder which came. We were totally unaware. Everybody was moving in a very straight way of working, carrying out its usual activities. And we were not very much sure, though we were hearing about the COVID-19 virus or the coronavirus 2019 in December 2019 itself, but we were caught unaware and we were not ready. We were not adaptive. We were not accepted to have such a pandemic growth of this coronavirus all across the world. And if we see the current figures, which has been taken from the Wikipedia on 7th of July, that is today itself. So we have 11.5 million cases confirmed all across the globe. And now in the India also, if we see that it has peaked high and India has changed its position from the lower bottom to the third in the rank. So in India, the coronavirus is spreading at a very high speed, and most of the people, they are becoming affected, and the data is still, and there are predictions are there that they will be, the peak will keep going in coming days also. So it is a very difficult time and difficult situation when this coronavirus erupted in India, specifically in the month of the March, when the lockdown came across with many problems and destructiveness in the normal day-to-day routine of the life. There was number of insecurities. Leave apart I'm not coming right at present to the indigenous population groups or to the tribal population group, but leave apart, I'm talking about in general in society. Every society was in a disruptive mode. Everything was stopped all of a sudden, unaware, caught. We were not ready, and the thing started moving in a disastrous manner, and that too with number of cases coming up and number of deaths reported all across the globe. So coming to the anthropological approach, when we say that we have to find the present human conditions in the both biological as well as the cultural approach, as rightly said by both the eminent teachers and the speakers prior to me, that anthropology has a perspective eye on the cultural approach. So medical anthropologists, they have contributed substantially to understanding the impact of the epidemic and pandemic. See, these epidemics and pandemics are not a new phenomena. It has happened in human societies, and as an anthropologist, we have to have an approach. But then the question was whether this coronavirus 2019 or COVID-19 is cultural oriented or it is a pandemic. And previously, when it started from Wuhan, so everybody was just thinking about it, whether it is still the theories are not clear. Everybody has a presumption that it was the data, or it was a virus which was leaked from the laboratory, or it was a biological warfare, or it is having a social impact, or it started with Wuhan. But now, as it has spread all across the globe, it is a pandemic. So understanding the effect of this pandemic on the human population group is a very much important goal and important thing to be taken care, not only when we are talking about the diagnosis of this coronavirus, but also the impact of the coronavirus, as I said in the initially, the COVID-19 period, as well as the post-COVID-19 period. So we all have seen a lockdown period of 4 months almost, starting from March. And now we had a lockdown 1, lockdown 2. We are in the stage of unlockdown and on lockdown, then another unlockdown. But still the things are not clear. We are not sure what is going to happen ahead. And accordingly, we have to adapt and take a view in a holistic manner, which the anthropologist does. And that is why anthropological insights are very important for research and resource for health determinants, occurrence and disease prevention, health promotion, and strengthening of health system among human communities, because the major goal is to save the survival of the human being. And that is why anthropologists, as always, focusing more and for carrying out on the key factors of human behavior and cultural practices, are generally implicated as the key factor of health. And that is how to understand, as was being discussed, that these social cultural practices prevalent among the societies help in understanding the health condition. And this cannot be taken as a national jacket. We have a different population group living in different ecosphere, living in different cultural adaptation, having different various cultural practices. So anthropologist's role and anthropologist's reflection of understanding each society that is very much required for carrying out promotion, prevention of the disease and strengthening of the health system. Tribal health is a good blueprint to understand. As always, that has been a upper hand of an anthropologist whenever they are trying to cope up, that these are the people who have a natural health cope up with the ecosystem, and they have their own way of indigenous health system and strategies for carrying out and coping up with the impact and prevent in tackling the diseases, especially the epidemic and pandemic. We have a beautiful example of Ebola. We have another example of the same virus, but this virus, this time, this novel virus now into a different kind of a mutant pandemic, which has been spread all across the globe, is the way which we have to see on the anthropological insight and reflections. And that is why the indigenous cultural practices, living with nature, historical imagery, use of traditional herbs and medicine, social exclusion are the important factors, especially to tackle epidemic and pandemic. Rightly said by Professor P.C. Joshi, I too also agree that when we talk about the social distancing, it has been now maken out, it has been given out rather the guidelines of the WHO, which clearly says that if you have to be on the preventive of this COVID-19 pandemic, you have to have a social distancing, and there are the words of quarantine, isolation. So if we talk about the social distancing, I totally agree with Professor P.C. Joshi when he says that social distance has a different perspective and different carry out aspect in the Indian culture. It should be as homo hierarchies, it should not be termed as social distancing, rather it should have been termed more appropriately as a physical distance so that it is not transmitted. So this is how the tribal lifestyle gives us a blueprint when they are living close with the nature and eat from the available resources in the nature. They have their own indigenous cultural practices. See, when we are talking about this COVID-19, number of things are coming up now, that the guidelines are there, the protocols are there. The protocols clearly spills out into the social distance, maintaining the distancing, carrying out, living out in isolation. If you are asymptomatic, then also you carry out into a quarantine for a prescribed period, and then immunity booster. That is what the major aspect, because the vaccine is not still available. So only thing is that a person has to have a strong immunity to fight with this coronavirus. And there comes the role of, see, the tribals population group. As an anthropologist, we have been studying a lot about the medical anthropology, the coping up with the disease and with the herbs and medicine. Like Professor Vinay Srivastav gave a very great example of Bastar, and I happened to spend some of the time when I was at Raipur teaching for long 12 years. I taught anthropology at Ravi Shankar University. So I had a chance of visiting Bastar number of times, and there one paste made of this red ants, which is known as the chapra. It is considered to be a very strong immunity booster paste. So this chapra, as a cultural practice of taking the paste, the chutney of the red ant, is a immunity booster, which makes the population group to have an immunity to fight with the viruses, bacteria, and other diseases and disorders. Same is the kada. The tribals, they have a lifestyle of drinking the kadas, and they have also this kada is made up of long, the dalchini, and even the barks of the urgent tree, the giloi, the another thing. So this all has been now brought for immunity booster. Even the Ayush and the naturopathy and herbopathy is being given a very great importance in fighting with on making the system more immune to fight and cope up with the COVID-19 at present. So social distancing, as already I said, that it should be replaced, and we as an anthropologist have to make our voice that it should be more a physical distancing rather than a social distancing. Exclusions, as rightly and very highly explained by Professor Srivastav, also among the tribal population of India. And then another aspect, stigma. See, the stigma is which he explained, and that is how when we say that even in when we study a community, whenever we had been studying a tribal community, if any person, any particular member of the society or the community is having a kind of a disease which they consider it is to be contagious, so there has always been a stigma, and there was a stigma was related to an isolation. The person used to move out of the periphery, out to the periphery of the village where the community has been residing. I remember of when I was doing my field work among the Kamars of eastern part of the Raipur district, one of the primitive tribal groups, the yaws, the disease yaws, which was much prevalent in that area. So I could locate and find two of the members of the family, two of the members in the family, they had the symptoms of initial symptom of the yaws, as they said, and they were forced to move into a isolation, living on the periphery till the time, and they made a cultural practice. The community had a cultural practice that they were providing them with all the food and other thing, and were forced to live into the isolation, so that it cannot be a contagious to the others, as well as maintaining the distancing. They live in isolation, cope up with the disease, and then become normal and come back to the community. So these all factors which the anthropologists have been using, have been carrying out, are of important aspect specifically which we are observing even in our own societies, which we call as an techno-industrial revolution society of industrial 4.0. So these anthropological significances, anthropological reflections are of utmost importance, understanding the COVID-19 pandemic and to cope up with the COVID-19 pandemic, taking an example of the anthropological reflection. I also add, like as being a student of anthropology and specifically a physical anthropologist, I cannot ignore the genetic susceptibility of this COVID-19. And this COVID-19 is caused, as we all know, is caused by a SARS, acute respiratory syndrome, COVID-2. And this novel human coronavirus was first identified in December 2019. Now, it is of significant importance that this SARS-CoV had been into the previous also, it was identified previously also, but this COVID-19 or the coronavirus 2019 has become more mutant, more dangerous, more lethal, and is into a pandemic form. This new coronavirus closely related to those usually found in bats and quite oddly in an endangered species, Malayan pony. Transmission of COVID-19 in human population is very high and large variation is observed. As I said, that is every day we keep hearing about the reports that this coronavirus is now, there is a mutant, like it was more susceptible to the aging and people with pre-existing diseases, cardiovascular, pulmonary and renal disease. But now we see that more and more young people and healthy individuals are also affected. So it goes a cause, it gives us a route to understand the anthropologists, specifically the physical anthropologists and the biologists, they have to come forward and understand the genetic origin of this virus, where the mutation is carrying out, where the mutation is leading, and how the component and perceptions are taking towards the movement of the society and to carry out the thing further as a goal. So this role of gene network in this virus infection is very important. Genes involved with immune responses, variants are observed. There are also reports, recent reports which have come. It has come into the literature also, that genes associated with the cell surface protein known as angiotensin converting enzyme, which the coronavirus used to enter and infect cell in the body. So genetic, virological, ecological, epidemiological, and evolutionary factor of this viral pandemic needs to be evaluated. We are lucky, my dear friends, and that we have another speaker, Professor P.K. Ghosh, and we have the other eminent speakers here today in this webinar, which are going to focus on this genetic causes of the COVID-19 pandemic. I come to the recent reported studies. As I said, that genes of each one of us is a carrier. it is also reported in the literature. A recent study has come that COVID-19 is more in men than in women. What the study says is that because of women having two X chromosome, the immunity gene is located more on the X chromosome, with quotes, because my teacher, my own guide is listening to it. So I restrict myself that I should not be caught at a wrong step or wrong footage. So that he will be explaining it much more, I think, and I will request Professor P.K. Ghosh to deliberate and carry out. But as per the reported studies, they say that it is the woman is less affected due to COVID-19 than in man. Blood type is also being associated. Reports have been come that blood types A are with greater risk than with blood group O, and there is also reports that there are variants of which the mutations have been seen in the region on the chromosome 3 and chromosome 9, which are directly implicated for COVID-19. So some of the studies, lot number of studies have come that there's COVID-19 with blood type, as I was telling it, that blood group A is considered to be at a very high risk as compared to people with blood group O. And for that, they have the studies which I have quoted also. It is a study of June 17, 2020, which shows, because we all know about the ABO blood group. So A, they have a type A antigen and antibody B. Type B has a B antigen on the red blood and anti-A, and type AB, they have the A and B antigen, and type O has no antigen but anti-A and anti-B body. So this immune system of people with type O blood antibodies, both A and B, are more equipped to identify foreign proteins, including those on the surfaces of the virus. So here comes, when we are carrying out a population screening, here comes the role of an anthropologist when the population screening is being carried out. And it is not only that we are having a preventive measure, but it is also that we are carrying out on the screening basis, that population groups have to be clearly educated, told about, they have to be despaired with the knowledge that blood type A, as per the recent studies, they has reported, has 45% greater risk than with blood type O, which has 35% lower risk of developing COVID-19 illness. So before coming to the thank you and for the question, I'll just like to complete my talk in just summarize it. So when we are talking about the etiology, when we are talking about the prognosis, when we are talking about the diagnosis of COVID-19, so the role of the anthropologist is of utmost importance, not only to carry out the use of the reflections of anthropology toward understanding the COVID-19 pandemic, but also to carry out further studies. And my dear young researchers, this is going to be a time. I always say, when I've been, see, now I am into the administration, so I have been talking a lot about the virtual classroom, my classroom, as well as the blended hybrid teaching. Number of students of Delhi University must be here and they must be anxious. A lot of insecurities came. Professor Vinay Srivastav talked about a lot about the mental behavior. Even Professor P.C. Joshi talked about the social behavior. And one of the social behavior aspect of anthropological aspect of the insecurity, as that which is going to be in somewhere at the back of your mind, because we are dealing with the adaptability of today's decision, when the UGC has said now that we are going to have, all universities are going to have an terminal examination system by September 2020. So this is what I am trying to correlate with the anthropological theory. And in the bent of your mind, even you are insecure at present that what will happen to a decision where the Honorable High Court of Delhi is going to listen to the petition which has been filed, that whether the examination has to be carried out or not. But being an anthropologist, it is the right time when we have to have a discourse, we have to deliberate, when we have to narrate and find out that used or based on the uses of the reflection of anthropology and anthropological theories, we also, as an anthropologist, have to carry out a very important role towards etiology. Again, I say prognosis and diagnosis, and also to the well-being of the human being. But then this year, and we have been carrying out in from a number of years, that every community requires a separate plan and strategies to cope up with their thing. Very rightly, Professor Vinay Srivastav said that we generally the population groups, specifically the so-called the developed civilization or the developed society, always says that tribal population groups are passive. It is not at all. They are also active. They are carrying out their adaptation. They are carrying out their own way of cultural practices to cope up with the disaster. And COVID-19 is also a disaster for each one of us, not only to a particular so-called developed societies where we have a less physical distance among ourselves, where the population is very high, but also into the tribal population group. But because of their cultural practices, which the guidelines also come of the prevention of the COVID-19, because of the less population group, because of the maintaining physical distance and dependence and having a immune system, we can take the examples of these communities and can cope up with the COVID-19 pandemic. So I will stop here with these views. Once again, I thank the Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi, and the organizers for giving me a chance for sharing my views as an anthropological perspective, or rather I will say the reflections on the COVID-19. Thank you very much.